Now I'm taking you to a cluster of orchards and labs on the outskirts of Te Puke in the Bay of Plenty, where the focus is on developing the kiwifruit of the future.
So that's, it's on the soft side.
What did you just do? Explain what you just did
Okay,
then.
so this is the gust penetrometer, and it is set to penetrate the flesh at a set rate. It goes in at like 2.7 mil, and it's the resistance that the fruit pushes on the, probe, and that tells us the fatness, which also handily transfers to the computer.
Meet research technologist Megan Wood. She's a dab hand at analysing kiwifruit inside and out. We're in the sensory lab at the Kiwifruit Breeding Centre in Te Puke.
So we're on to fruit number 2. So part of my placement is that I'm always going left to right, fruit 1, 2, 3, so we keep it that way, and that is important when it comes to the taste sample at the end. Fruit number 3, it's getting better. We've got a 0.36, so far that's my pick for a taster.
We'll come back to the sensory lab later and also meet one of the kiwifruit tasters here. You'll be surprised to know that many of the everyday workers at the centre also have the job of tasting kiwifruit.
My name's Matt Glenn, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Kiwifruit Breeding Centre.
The centre is 4 years old now, a joint venture between kiwifruit marketing firm Zespri and Plant and Food Research, now part of the Bioeconomy Science Institute.
We're sort of the grease in the wheels between the researchers in the laboratory and Zespri, who are the commercialisation partner. And that's really why we set up the joint venture as well, because we can focus really on deploying the technology, implementing it, and then driving it through to a commercial outcome.
And is there anything else like it in the world in terms of the kiwifruit industry?
Not as far as we know. The kiwifruit industry, there's lots of sort of significant breeding programs around the world, mainly in China and Italy. But we are the largest that we know of in the world.
The centre has research orchards not only here at the headquarters in Te Puke, but also in Kerikeri, Motueka, Gisborne, Clyde and Italy.
Breeding new cultivars is a long process. And it starts with Zespri actually coming to us saying, hey, listen, we'd like a kiwi fruit that does X, Y, and Z. And we call those concepts because they're not real yet. Then we have to go into our existing plants our collections, into our raw germplasm that originally would have come out of Sichuan in China. And we have somebody or a number of people in the organisation who develop what are called elite parents. So they're looking at the plants that we've got, the germplasm, how can we cross those so we get a male and a female that when we cross them are likely to give us something that looks like the concept that Zespri has given us. That process can take 4 or 5 years just to get the parents. Then what we have to do is we have to plant a load of the seeds in the ground. So we would normally plant between 30 and 40,000 seedlings in the ground every year here at KBC across the country. And we then have to grow them for 4 to 5 years to produce enough fruit to be able to look at it and say, actually, this does actually look like what we thought it was going to look like. And then out of those 30 or 40,000 that we plant as seedlings every year, there's probably only about 200 or 300 that go into the next stage, which is the sort of the clonal commercial testing. That's where we will take a vine and we will chop the budwood up and we'll graft it onto rootstocks, multiple rootstocks in multiple locations. And again, we have to grow them for sort of 3 to 4 to 5 years to get enough fruit to be able to test them. So 5 years to produce the parent, 5 years to look at the seedlings, 5 years to look at the sort of the commercial products. And so after sort of 15 years, we might go back to Zespri and say, hey, do you remember 15 years ago you said you'd like a kiwi fruit that looked like this? Well, we think here are some candidates. And we present them to the Zespri board and they go, they look pretty good. We think we'd like to have a bet on those because it's quite a big bet they're making at that stage, because at that stage they then put them into the hands of the growers and grow them at hectare scale. And then what happens is they've got to take the fruit from those after another 3 or 4 years and put them through the supply chain, put them into the markets. And then, of course, if you go, yeah, that's a winner, we're going to commercialise it. So it can be a 20, 25-year period of time from a concept through to a product actually being in the marketplace.
And it was the taste of gold that led my guide to working at the centre.
Morning, I'm Nath, and I'm one of the scientists with KBC.
He's now helping breed the gold kiwi fruit of the future.
I was working with rice before, with hybrid rice.
So from rice to kiwi fruit,
Yeah.
a lot of difference.
It is. I've learned that in rice you always look downwards, but for kiwi fruit you have to always look upwards.
Yeah.
I mean, that all crops are very different, and kiwi fruit is quite unique because it takes a lot of time. And if you compare the breeding cycles for rice, you can grow 3 cycles of rice in one season. So, and kiwi fruit, it takes 15 to 20 years for commercialization, which is a big, big difference.
Had you tasted many before you came into the job?
Not really. And I think that's an interesting story because I think it was when I tasted Gold 3 and it made me quite inquisitive, like, what's this all about? It tastes really nice. And then doing some more research, I landed up in this job.
Amar is showing me around parts of the 40-hectare research orchards at Te Puke.
So we're standing pretty much in the middle of the centre here.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what we can see.
Okay, this is the time of the year where the vines are pruned. So that means they are being prepared for the next season. So you can't see much in the orchard, but you can see a lot of people who are working and they are trying to prune those vines.
These are very old vines. The trunks are really quite thick, aren't they?
Yeah, and this is one of the oldest blocks which we have in Te Puke, and some of these vines are almost 70 to 75 years old. It's a trial where we are trying to look at how well we can manage those old kiwi fruit vines, and even can you get the same kind of yields after 60 or 70 years. These vines say that yes, it's possible.
Is that in the pruning techniques?
Kiwi fruit is a lot about management. The breeders look forward to the genetic potential of a vine, but it's really about management when the growers get hands onto it, and that's where probably you can get the true potential of a vine.
So what goes on underneath as well as what goes on in terms of training the vines?
Exactly.
All those sorts of things?
Exactly. There's a lot. So it all starts from genetic potential, then you have the environment on top of it, and then you have the management practices. So it's all combines together to really allow you to exploit the genetic potential of a particular vine.
Back at HQ, I asked Chief Executive Matt Glenn which traits they try to enhance in the breeding program.
Actually, that's what's interesting is there's not one most important trait. We look for things in 3 particular areas. The first one, of course, is we've got to develop kiwi fruit that the consumer wants to buy. So there's attributes like flavour, colour, nutritional benefits, how long it lasts in your fridge, all those kind of good things are what consumers are looking for. Now, that's great, but we've also got to have something that the grower can make money out of. So we're looking for things like yield, resilience, we're looking for things that help them with their management practices. And then the third area that we've got to get right at the same time is the supply chain. So we've got to make sure that the fruit don't have spikes on them so they puncture other fruit as they go through the process. We've got to make sure that they're really hardy so you can pick them while they're sort of quite firm, but then they'll go through the supply chain really well. If any one of those 3 things is missing, the likelihood is that the fruit won't be successful.
So are you trying to improve already existing varieties or putting more of your effort into new varieties?
Again, both. So we're looking at how we can improve the existing ones, but also at the same time, how can we find really new, novel types of kiwi fruit.
So what do you need to improve on, say, on the Hayward variety, which we can see on the wall over there, and the Sun Gold? The Sun Gold was already an improvement on the Gold, wasn't it?
It was in the fact that the current G3 is much more resistant to PSA than the original Gold version was, that basically got destroyed back in the 2010s, 2011s. Sometimes it might be improvement in yield, it might be improvement in resilience to environmental change, so that's actually quite a big area. Particularly when you look at climate change is warming, and kiwi fruit need a period actually of chill to be able to set the flowers and then get on and produce fruit. So they're the sorts of things that we're trying to improve all the time. One of the areas that we have been working on is that we are developing green kiwi fruit that may not need some of the chemical inputs that the farmers use traditionally now. Can't talk too much about the details until they get released, but they're the sorts of things that we're looking at. And as I said, yield is quite a big deal for the growers in particular. The consumers won't see much difference because in some cases you're trying to make the fruit actually look exactly like or as close to the existing one so that you can keep the same brand on it and the consumers see it as the same product, but you may be actually trying to improve it from a grower and a supply chain perspective.
In the orchard with Amar, we pass by a large greenhouse.
I can see lots of pots with stakes in them and the plants.
Yeah, we are trying to grow
Budding
some
below.
of those inside those houses, and yeah,
And that's
so-
all temperature controlled.
Yeah, they are. We know that the climates are changing, and because kiwifruit depends a lot on environmental conditions for its growth, it's one of those futuristic ideas where if you could bring them inside a glass house and grow them, probably that would allow you to reduce the risk from the environment.
You'd need some very big greenhouses, I guess.
Yeah, it needs investment, but it's again, if you consider like the gains from kiwifruit, so that's probably going to be profitable rather than thinking that's going to be a huge investment, but probably you'll get good returns at the end. So.
The modelling that we're seeing is telling us that the climate in the Bay of Plenty, where 80% of kiwi fruit are grown, will be like Northland by about 2050, 2060, that kind of time frame. So we already have to think about that in our breeding program today. So as well as having our headquarters here in Te Puke, where we've got over 40 hectares here of research orchards, we've got over 30 hectares of research orchards up in Northland in Kerry. And so for me, that's a really important orchard that we have up there because we're putting the plants under that selection pressure of Northland climate.
And what's different about growing up in Northland? What are you seeing?
Well, it's different in the sense that the soils are not quite as good as they are down here in Te Puke. As we said, the weather's a little bit different, so they don't get that same kind of winter chill, which is one of the big issues. If you don't get a certain amount of winter chill, it's pretty hard to get flowers to set. A bit wetter, a bit warmer, but all of those factors together mean that it's harder to grow the kind of volumes that we see down here in the Bay of Plenty.
Wow, so this could be a real threat to the industry, climate change. Are you developing a kiwi fruit that doesn't need winter chill?
They will need less winter chill because if we put them under that pressure in Northland and they still produce fruit, then we know that's going to be a winner. It may have other things that are not right with the fruit, but we know that there are genes in there that are allowing it to grow in those conditions. So how do we then cross it and keep crossing things to make sure those genes are going into the next generation so that we get also great fruit that the consumers want, plenty of yield for the growers, hardy for the supply chain, but we have put them under that pressure, that evolutionary pressure effectively of warmer, wetter temperatures than we get down here in the bay. And then so by the time the bay looks like that, we know that we will have cultivars that will work successfully down here in the bay. As I said, where 80% of kiwi fruit are grown between Katikati and Whakatane.
And what about intense weather events? I mean, that's another big problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it is another big problem. And in particular, we have a root stock program. We understand, we've seen in particular that there are issues with very wet soils and heavy soils, both here and actually in particular in Italy. They've got these really heavy wet soils. So we are breeding new root stocks to deal with those conditions. At the same time, we're going to have areas that are going to have soils that are salinating or soils that are very dry. So we've actually got to be looking at a whole, kind of every extreme in just about everything that we do.
So where are we heading now?
So this is again a stage 1 breeding block. So these are basically the gold breeding blocks, And again, it's very high density, but the difference you can see, you'll find gaps in between. Like you've got gaps like these, and then you have got those. Because we have to deal with PSA, which still is one of the biggest challenges for us.
Yeah,
And
PSA was the big disease that destroyed the original gold
Yeah.
kiwi fruit.
Yeah, and I think that's where probably we are much comfortable now, because you can see their base which are still filled up with plants. So you don't see much PSA now. So that's one of the good things, because if you have been in here 10 years ago, probably you'll be seeing those 1 or 2 plants and the whole base would be empty. You can see most of the vines surviving, and very few that's from PSA.
Has this block been infected with PSA?
It's all there. PSA is everywhere. So if you see anything in Te Puke, you'll have PSA inoculum everywhere. So these vines have developed tolerance because it's a breeding cycle, and every generation we have been adding that tolerance, and that's why they're becoming much more tolerant to the PSA now.
So these are the real toughies, these ones.
They are, yeah.
They're just an even better generation of what's out there that's surviving.
Yeah.
The fruit bred here are also put through the rigmarole of grading, packing and storing to see how it bears up in a typical packhouse environment. Here in the sensory lab, Megan Wood is getting ready to test another batch of fruit from different vines.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm just going to flip that past you. We will go with this one.
Why have you chosen those ones?
Because essentially I just feel them, and I just think I would eat that one. Again, each one's a little bit different, so that's my best guess. We've been doing it for years, so my best guess is usually good, pretty good. Yes. So I've selected that one. I have now loaded it up, and the first step is to weigh it to get its average. Well, it's a bulk weight, and then it averages it by the sample size. 162 grams, which is pretty good.
It's quite a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And these are gold, are they?
Yes. So this is a commercial gold, so which is bred for a potential candidate out in industry in the market. Now I am shaping, so I've started with square because it's got quite a blocky shoulder and quite a blocky bottom. So that's its primary shape, but it also isn't a true square. So I'm also going to say that it is partially oblong.
Because you had a few choices there you could choose from, didn't you?
Yes, quite a few. But we do tend to sit in the square oblong space. Now I'm also going to say that its shoulders are square, because that is the original reason I've gone with square as the shape. The styler, and that's quite an important one. If anyone remembers the old Hort 16A with the beak, it's an undesirable trait, so we always comment on that. This one is looking pretty good.
And those are the knobbly bits at the top of the fruit, aren't they?
Technically the bottom.
Oh, the bottom.
Yes. Yes. So it does stick out a little bit, but not enough to cause damage to the other fruit around it. The cross section, so it's pretty circular. And lenticels, which is on the surface of the fruit, they can be quite raised, and that can cause shrivelling in the cool store, so it will affect post-harvest, so we just comment on that. This one's really good, nice and flat.
How long does it take you to analyse each fruit?
Between 5 and 8 minutes, depending on the fruit. But if you get one that's kind of stumped you and you're like, is it square? It takes a little bit longer.
Megan also grades the fruit for their colour and firmness.
That's going to be softer, yeah.
And there's sugar readings too.
This is our first pass-fail step. If it is too low on sugar, it's not going to taste very good, so our tasters will not appreciate us putting that out. There's also a woody plug at the top here. They can get quite big, the woody plug, which is obviously not very good for our consumers or our tasters. We have had people in the past crack a tooth on it. And these cavities down here are for pests. So if the cavity is too big too many critters will live in there and we can't export it.
There are other factors like yield and fibre content, which are also graded. Next, crunch time, and hopefully not breaking a tooth in the process. Not everyone likes the job, but next door we have a victim, Tom Paterson, whose main role is with databases and orchard plans.
Tom, you've been doing this for a long time.
30 years or so.
30 years? 30 years. Are you sick of kiwi fruit yet?
I don't buy kiwi fruit or eat much of it outside of sensory season.
How often are you tasting kiwi fruit?
At peak, every weekday, towards the end, 1 or 2 days a week.
And they just use everybody's taste buds around here in this first stage of tasting.
There's a bit of training goes into it, and some people don't enjoy it, so avoid it.
So you've got some kiwi fruit there in front of you.
Yep.
How do you go about it?
So I pull up the entry form here, which goes into the database they use, same database they're using in the lab. Taste. So we'd call that one balanced, fruity, juicy, slightly hardcore. Overall, an average one. And then put in the relevant numbers.
Wow.
Do you want me to go through the numbers?
Well, yes. I mean, that was very quick.
You get quick after several thousand.
Tom records the scores on texture, acidity, juiciness, ripeness, and more.
Is it a difficult job?
It was a lot harder several generations of kiwi fruit populations ago. The earlier stuff was a lot more acid.
So it gets to the point where you're going, oh no, not another kiwi fruit.
Yeah, but we're dealing with F3, F4, F5 populations these days.
So it's a much improved kiwi fruit.
Yeah, it is. You know, we've selected all the way through that.
Better tasting.
Yeah.
Tom Paterson tasting kiwi fruit at the Kiwifruit Breeding Centre in Te Puke. I was also speaking to Matt Glenn, Megan Wood and Nath. Who knew there was so much to breeding the perfect kiwi fruit? It's come a long way from the kiwi fruit seeds first brought into New Zealand from China by Isabel Fraser in 1904. And Duncan, I was really interested to know whether AI would help speed the breeding up. And the chief executive, Matt Glenn, told me it'll help with data collection and decision making. But at the end of the day, they still have to put seeds in the ground and grow them.
Some things never change.